Okay, we're going to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. Present are council members Frazier, Cost, Bub, Blake, and Marmee. First item on the agenda is a request for distribution of $78,450.49. The Jed Z.
Be happy to speak to that, I guess. It's just on our standard Jed Z payouts that the income tax department does.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Bub, second by Cost. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $9,875,000. I knew it had to be Roger. Yeah, because he's the only one that asked for that kind of money.
This isn't actually asking for the money. This is a memo appropriation for a loan that we're taking out for our anaerobic digester project. This job has been bid already. We're ready to award the contract to a company called Dugan & Myers out of Cincinnati. But the loan will be coming through OWDA, and this is just a memo appropriation, so that money comes in, or that money is appropriated through us, but the money is actually just filtered through us back to the contractor. So it's not physically our money; it's a loan amount. So.
Okay.
Motion. Second.
Motion by Bub, second by Frazier. Questions or discussion?
I have one.
Yes.
On the loan, we get special preferential treatment like low interest, a certain amount of time. What are those conditions with it?
Well, this is the Ohio Water Development Authority, and that is a quasi-governmental agency that loans money for water and wastewater projects. And so this is their water pollution control loan fund that we get this through. This is money that comes through the state revolving loan fund money, which the federal government gives the state money, and then it's called a revolving loan fund, and so that money comes through there. OWDA bonds the money out to large organizations, millions and billions of dollars, and then loan that money out at a low interest rate. So we're going to get this. I believe the interest rate we're at right now is, I think when this loan's approved, I think we're going to be about just under 2% maybe.
Okay.
We haven't signed the final documents, so we don't get that until the day we do that, but that's kind of where we're at with this. So.
Very good.
Mr. Chair, Roger, I'm not going to sit here and act like I know what this is. Could you tell me what anaerobic digester is?
Okay, anaerobic digester is part of the wastewater process. Wastewater treatment plant is a big recycling facility. We end up with two things when we get done with that. We end up with clean water, and we end up with material that we've taken out of that clean water. And so the solids that are left over, the biosolids, we have to digest and stabilize before we send that to land application for agricultural reuse.
So is this like one of the big tanks out there?
Well, this would be one of the big, it's a big fermentation tank, so everything goes in there. We stabilize that, reduce that, we sell the gas off of that, and then the solids, then we haul to a landfill. We haul to land application. Sometimes we'll take it to the landfill depending on what's going on, but most of the time it goes to a land application and for reuse. So that's the process. It's basically a side stream process of the wastewater process to handle the material that we take out of the water to clean the water before we put it back into the river. So.
Thank you.
So it's a sophisticated compost pile.
It's a big fermentation process.
Right. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation amount of $7,000.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have applied for a couple different grants for Wells Park, and this is one of them from the Licking County Foundation, and we're going to use it for upgrades at Wells Park, and that'll be done this spring.
Motion. Second.
Motion by Bub, second by Frazier. Questions or discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr.
I
Platt.
just want to thank Director Rhodes for all your work on Wells Park. I know the community around there is going to really appreciate all the improvements that you're doing, so thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been about a year and a half in the works, as you know.
Well, thank you for being
Yep.
persistent.
Yep.
Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passed 5-0. And the next item on the agenda is a request for legislation authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Newark to submit an application to the Ohio Department of Public Safety for an award of fiscal year 2018 and 19 funding under the Ohio EMS Training and Equipment Grant Fund.
This is essentially an EMS training and equipment grant that's going to require a line item in our budget so that you can put those monies directly in, or the state can put those monies directly in and account for how they were spent if they ever ask.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Frazier, second by Cost. Any questions or discussion?
I have a question.
Yes.
When does this get awarded? Do we know?
No, don't know. And I'll say that grants are slow this year, so if I gave you a date, it would probably be optimistic and wrong.
Well, let's just leave it to no date then.
I'll try and find out.
Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. This meeting of finance stands adjourned. Next, I believe, is economic development. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Well, good evening, everybody. We'll call the Economic Development Committee to order. Those present are myself, Mr. Rath, Bill Cost, T. Hall, Jonathan Lang, and then Jeremy Blake is just sitting up here for a chair.
I'm on the committee after this.
So we understand. So, Don,
Comfortable than out there.
Yeah.
would you like to introduce our guest?
Yes, I've asked Nate Strom of Grow Licking County to come tonight to just give us a quick update about Newark and Licking County. So here's Nate.
If I can be so bold to hand this off and I can pass that around a little bit. Good evening and thank you all for having me. As President Ellington mentioned, I'm Nate Strom with Grow Licking County Community Improvement Corporation. I've been here now 2.5 years, give or take, so the community hasn't kicked me out yet, which is really exciting.
There is a petition.
I understand. There's a Facebook page about it. It's fine. In your folder, a couple key things real quick. On your right-hand side, you'll have our annual report from last year. Really kind of highlights some of the activities that we had going on in 2016. So it's dated. We'll have a new one coming out in the next couple of weeks for 2017. What I want to draw your attention to is the little piece right in the middle. It's our quarterly update. We do a quarterly newsletter as well as our annual report. In here you'll find out what's going on with ED 411, some of the work that Grow Licking County is doing with our STEM ecosystem, and some of the development of our career pathways. We'd be more than happy to walk you through that if you're at all interested. Our recent Licking County 360 tour, where we had brokers and other vested in parties come through all of our communities of Licking County and kind of take a tour of what facilities we have going on and what private investment opportunities there were. Work at the COTC Global Business Conference that just happened. We actually sponsored a session focusing on apprenticeship programming and how to partner opportunities with private market apprenticeships. Think of German style. I actually hosted someone from the German American Chamber of Commerce to come in and talk about their model. Our project updates, new board members, and then our host of events on the last page. What I really want to talk a little bit about tonight, though, is this document right here. It's the executive summary of our ED Action Plan, Grow LC 2025. This was a 9-month undertaking by my board of directors. We worked with the Montrose Group, based out of Columbus, to kind of evaluate and identify opportunities for Licking County and all of our communities to kind of get a value and benefit out of more strategic analysis of where we should be spending our economic development efforts. It's one thing when you have an unemployment rate of about 9%, which is what we were about 8 years ago, versus now, which is about 3.8%. So you're going to be much more strategic about what companies we're engaging, how we're growing our local economy. And so that's why this document, this is just the executive summary. There's a much heavier document if anyone wants to really see it. It's about 85 pages. But it really focuses on a couple different areas: advanced manufacturing, STEM and high-tech job relations, professional service occupations, and a mixed-use urban core setting. Welcome to Newark. This is our urban core setting for most of our Licking County areas. So some of our SWOT is through here, some of our overarching goals, and this will all be released on our website probably after our upcoming breakfast. So just so everybody knows on the council, our annual investors breakfast is scheduled for March the 7th at 7:30 at Cherry Valley Lodge. If you're able to attend, I'll be more than happy to send out a link to the council to see if you can be able to attend. And we'll have Dr. Ned Hill, who's an economist and political science professor at Ohio State, speaking, as well as John Rosen from Cherry Valley, talking about an update on the hotel itself. So we'd really encourage you to come out and take a look at it. But in the last 2 pages of this document, really kind of goes through some of our higher overarching goals and objectives for the next 7 years or so. Doing a robust BRNA program. We've actually just had our project associate, Jillian Ryan, travel to Las Vegas for a formal training on BRNA programs, business retention and expansion. Going global and focusing on international business affairs coming into Licking County and diversifying our marketplace that way. An advanced materials research park. Think of that in the way of the research triangle that's down in North Carolina. So really identifying our key driver. In this case, it's, Licking County itself outpaces the U.S. about 3-to-1 margin for advanced materials manufacturing. So now it's encompassing more, not just the manufacturing opportunities on the backside, but all the upfront R&D side of it as well, bringing all that into house. An occupational marketing campaign, revising Licking County's urban cores and helping to diversify those areas, and then developing a Licking County infrastructure bank. It was very timely hearing that programs that are happening, talking about revolving loan funds and having those access to that kind of capital. We're looking at doing our own just for Licking County right now as part of this strategic plan, so that when these opportunities present themselves for our communities, we provide an extra tool in the toolbox to kind of help fill the gap on some of those capital projects throughout the community. Other activities, if you go onto our website right now, I don't have a laptop with me or a projector, but if you go on to growlickingcounty.org and click on our property search page, it's all formally revamped. We have a huge plethora of statistics and analysis now based on communities, not only just on sites, but also on data from wages, employment numbers, projections, current spending projections for each community, and 5-year projections for each community. Whole gamma of opportunities on that as well from a statistical analysis standpoint. That's probably just been rolled out in the last 2 weeks. So with that, I kind of open up to you to see what questions you might have of what we're doing.
Is there any questions by members of the committee? Ms. Hall?
Yeah, what was that date again? I'm sorry.
March the 7th at 7:30 a.m. at Cherry Valley. I can send that email out through Dawn and have it circulate to the council if you'd like.
Any questions? Any other questions from Ms. Rapp?
Yeah, when the 2017 report comes out, if you could...
Yeah, we'll have that released at our annual breakfast, but I'll be more than happy to send that around as well.
I'd love to come to the annual breakfast, but it'd be a $1,500 airline ticket, so...
Understood. All our stuff's also always available online. We're more than happy to send over some printed copies, but on our Connect page at growlickingcounty.org/connect, we always have our documents available for download as well.
Mr. Costa, anything? Ms. Hall, you have nothing?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
I have a couple questions.
I have no doubts.
I don't get you on a hot seat very often, so this is nice.
When it comes to the education gap that we're seeing with skilled trades as well as apprenticeships, we have JVS, CTEC, a lot of these groups sprinkled in there. What do you see from a Newark perspective of the need for future education to fill these jobs that we're seeing? Are we doing enough with the skilled training and with the college mixed in, or do we need to really encourage secondary skilled trade education? What do you see?
I think the real problem that we're having is this: we're educating for the sake of educating, and there isn't a career focus or pathway tied to what we're gearing our students for. I had a chance to travel last November with the Works Museum here in town. We went to the STEM ecosystem national summit in Kansas City for a couple days. And one of the things I saw from a lot of other communities that they're doing, whether it's aligning them in manufacturing purposed opportunities or IT or healthcare, or you fit the mold of which they're talking about, it really boiled down to identifying students who fit those career pathways and then aligning their education towards those career pathways long term, whether that meant into a college track and 2 or 4 year opportunities, or into the skilled trades or adult education side of it. And that's just one of the things that my office is really trying to do right now. Currently, I'm working with Dr. Federer over at the Works and a team of folks that are doing the part of their STEM ecosystem. Real quick, does anyone know what the STEM ecosystem is on the council? Predominantly, high level.
Just say it for the record.
Sure. The Works Museum here in Newark was recently selected to be a part of a program called STEM Ecosystems. It's one of 53 programs in the country that have been selected to be part of this program. It's about identifying best practices in STEM education. We have one of them right here in town. And then developing your ecosystem to kind of promote career opportunities in those bases, to promote better workforce and long-term longevity within your communities. I'm on the steering committee of that team. And one of our first projects is actually doing an inventory of all of the STEM activities happening in the community. What we want to avoid is having the random acts of STEM happening all over the place. If we're able to identify, and this is beyond just the city of Newark, but this is making sure everybody's playing in the same box, everybody's playing in the same area, so we know what everybody else is doing. And that way we can identify where the gaps really are for our students, and where we can backfill some of those partnerships, whether that's at the education side or candidly on the industry side. Industry doesn't know what they don't know. And so we're trying to identify where some of our better career opportunities look like long term, and how we can backfill students into those opportunities and make sure we have the right resources for them to explore. The other side of it is, Councilman, is every job that I'm touching now today, it's passing what I call the KICS test. It's got to be kid tested and mother approved. Yeah, laugh, but it's a good jingle. People remember that, right? So everything we touch today has to make sure that it's interesting for kids, but parents understand what those careers look like long term. So that's one of our biggest focus as well, because I think there's a real gap from our folks at CTEC and even the local school districts. We get our students this information and they take it home, and sometimes the parents are interested in understanding it, sometimes they don't. So making sure we have a better engagement with those parents as well, what these career opportunities look like long term.
And what is the age range where, hey, I know what I want to do for a career or an interested field, and catering to that education stream? Is
one of the things
high school, or is it high school?
It's well before high school now. We're talking, I'm talking with Dr. Federer about doing some programs, and we're talking about a strategy that are focusing on 5th graders, younger, and making sure that they see it as play. Parents see it as they're developing an aptitude, and make sure we're starting to have that conversation early.
And then I guess the other caveat is at-risk youth.
Mm-hmm.
And do you see a layering of additional programs to help drive those kids into education and accountability, and making sure that they have a support system? Or
yes.
What are your
well, that's part of the mechanism from the ecosystem. So we're working with the Urban League and some other folks to try to figure out what's the best way to engage some of those at-risk youth programs, and how we fold their programming in to allow for a tiered system. So when they're getting out of one program, they're just flowing right into the next and the next and the next.
I'll end it my line of questioning. But with transportation, so I know that a lot of your heart is in transportation. Do you want to give us an update on where we are with those, and your thoughts on whether we're making progress or what?
Sure. So for those who don't know, Grow-Licking County kind of helped facilitate about a half dozen meetings last year as it revolved around transportation, transit transportation in particular in our community. After the last session that I facilitated was in October of last year. The baton had been passed at that point. I believe Ohio State and Newark and Denison are partnering with a firm called Share. They had their first session 2 weeks ago at the Newark space. My office is here to help give statistical analysis and give some supportive data, as well as make connections to industry. I know there was a number of industry-based partners at that meeting who are interested in identifying a solution, but as far as Grow-Licking County's formal role in that, we've got that ball rolling.
The baton.
Yeah, and we're just shuffling off to the side and just waiting for the next one to pop up.
And then is there other initiatives that we should be aware of besides what's in the annual report?
I think workforce is our chief. It's actually it's our secret sauce because we have such great assets in our community from CTEC and COTC. But it's also our biggest challenge because our population is not reaching the same potential that our job creation opportunities are in our community. So we've got to continue to balance the workforce drivers and prepare our incoming generations for what those opportunities look like as they evolve. Manufacturing jobs of today are not going to be the same from 20 years ago, and they certainly won't be the same from 5 years from now. So it's continue to evolve that conversation, understand what those jobs look like, and that's the same in any sector. Healthcare jobs aren't the same they were 20 years ago, and they won't be the same from 5 years from now. Making sure we're remain on that cutting edge of that technology side of it. So our workforce is our largest driver, and then I think infrastructure is going to be one of our key drivers moving forward as well. Opportunities don't go where there's no infrastructure. So working with partners at the City of Newark, for example, identifying what the capacities are for their infrastructure, as well as identifying targeted neighborhoods of where there's large-scale opportunities, or even smaller-scale business or industrial opportunities, and how we maximize some of those things for you.
And did you convince Amazon to come to Columbus?
Not yet.
Okay.
And I am not part of that conversation. Thank God.
Is there any questions, comments, Mr. Blake?
Mr. Chairman, Nate, I'm just curious.
Sure.
Many of us attended the Groundhog Breakfast a few weeks ago, and we got the opportunity to hear from Kenny McDonald with Columbus 2020. I was hoping you could speak to sort of the regional approach of Central Ohio, marketing Central Ohio as a place to do business and to provide new job opportunities. And specifically, what smart city type initiatives could Newark be getting that we haven't been able to leverage yet that might be down the road or in the future? I noticed it's in one of your long-term goals.
Well, let's break that question down a little bit. So the first and foremost, from a regional standpoint, having come from another region of the United States before I came here from the Pittsburgh area, and Pittsburgh continues to be a comp against Columbus in many factors, whether it's workforce, education, prosperity.
Modernization.
Yeah. I think Columbus is second to none in a lot of those categories, and that's one of the reasons why you're seeing such rapid growth in the Central Ohio marketplace. I think Kenny highlighted in particular the goals over the last 10 years, and they're on track to exceed all three of the major ones: per capita income, net new jobs, and net new private investment. I want to highlight this number for you because I always love this number. Last year, Central Ohio did $1.1 billion in private investment of total growth. Licking County did $854 million. It was a good day.
That's good.
So we are seeing absolutely those ripple effects into our community. I think what's challenging to us, and we're starting to see that come across the border now, what was a traditional manufacturing-focused marketplace of Licking County is now becoming a technology-driven marketplace. We saw, obviously Facebook landing in New Albany, but on the Licking County side was the largest driver of it all. What was overshadowed, though, was Tech R2 landed in Pataskala. And they do a terabyte data destruction programming that allows for DoD level data eradication, destruction to go through, so you can resell computers and make sure you're not getting hacked on the backside of opportunities. That happened in Pataskala, and they're rapidly growing themselves. That was completely overshadowed by the Facebook deal. We've already seen some of those assets land in Licking County. So a couple years ago, Goodyear and their R&D facility landed in Hebron. We're seeing some other smart technologies land in Granville right now at the S&T facility. The goal for me is to continue to educate those companies that as they're spinning out needing larger facilities, because candidly a lot of them are working in maybe a 5,000 or 10,000 square foot clean room tech space in downtown, either at Rev 1 or something adjacent to that. As they get larger spaces and need more elbow room, educating them that we're only a half hour away, and it's all highway. And if the smart technologies work, you're not even driving soon on that highway. It's just kind of there. So we're having that conversation. We'll continue to focus on that. And it's, again, part of the plan as you highlighted. So we're going to be continuing to focus on those initiatives as much as anything else.
Is there federal dollars that we could be going for that related to that? Or to help with?
From a community standpoint, probably not. Not right now. Not that I'm aware of. It's all industry driven right now. So for those who don't know, Smart Columbus as a program started out as a $40 million federal grant that was then matched by $10 million from the Vulcan Foundation, Paul Allen. It's now over $500 million funneling into these smart cities. What they're trying to do is take smart city initiatives, smart grid initiatives, start at the micro level of either Ohio State or Columbus focus, and then from a macro level start bringing it out. So as they need larger test patterns, you'll just start seeing some of those things come out this way. But to the best of my knowledge, from a government side right now, there aren't any.
Follow up. Sure. You had mentioned, I can't remember, you talked about medical field, medical facilities, jobs in that area. You just mentioned technology. I know you often speak of a third area that you see in growth. I can't remember what that.
Oh, it's manufacturing.
Okay. How do you see agriculture playing a part with the county's whole diverse economy?
Well, I think agriculture is going to still remain one of the predominant drivers of Licking County. I mean, it serves as a $900 million annual industry for us, and still growing. It's becoming more prosperous with less footprint, if you can believe that. So I think it's always about blending it. Well, actually, don't hurt me, Mayor Hall, if he's in the room. Your counterpart in Heath made a comment to me once that said, we've got to always be careful about our green space. Because at the end of the day, I like to eat. And so we grow our food, we harvest it, and you're seeing a lot of this farm-to-table agriculture movement happening here, especially in Licking County. We have to be very conscious of conserving those resources as much as anything else.
Well, the places like the Canal Market District.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Lane.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. So you mentioned, Nate, a number of investments in large businesses around Licking County, New Albany, Granville, Heber, and Pataskala. What are we missing? What are we not doing in Newark that we need to be doing to bring those kinds of opportunities here?
Well, I think the first step, and Mark and I've had some preliminary conversations, is really just an analysis as to what lands are available in Newark in particular. Whether, I have sites in Newark. We have this 180,000 square foot Class A office space on the east side of town right now that just hit my website today. We updated all the new stuff from Shea Commercial, who's brokering that site. They've got a couple other sites here in town from a larger facility standpoint. The challenge is either identifying sites that are available to be reused from a land standpoint, or making sure we have a better articulation as to what buildings are available for constructive reuse long term. We just don't have that inventory. And for the record, Councilman, no community has that inventory.
Sure.
And so that's something that I advocate all the time as we start going through the next phase of growth for Grow Licking County. Every one of our communities should be doing a comprehensive land analysis. Not necessarily a plan, because everyone gets trigger pointed with the word plan, but let's start targeting neighborhoods that we want to go through revitalization purposes and start targeting large chunks of opportunities in theirs, and how we can start bundling those lands together into one buildable pad or one area that can be reused properly or more effectively.
Mr. Rath.
What do you see happening along the Thornwood corridor, and once they complete the Thornwood exchange, is that going to add towards development and then into town?
Yes. The short answer is very much yes. Long term, I think that becomes your chief north-south connector from 16 to 40 and 70. You're going to have a lot of industry, whether it's manufacturing-based, technology-based, IT-focused. Everything's going to want to land there rather than having to go through any of the other parts of town and get stuck in traffic. So last year, Grow Licking County did our infrastructure survey. We had open up to everybody in the community to submit. 77 projects were submitted through that survey. Thornwood Corridor was the #1 priority based on long-term economic viability and diversification of our north. We have some really great east-west connectors. We have 0 north-south. And so that, Seminary Ridge, which is on the lower end of Thornwood as well, Mink Street, so Mink's out on the west side of the county, but those were your 3 predominant focus points. And Thornwood Drive is going to be a great opportunity long term for all municipalities.
Mr. Cost.
Nate, first of all, thank you for coming.
No problem.
You had talked about career paths for young people, trying to get them on some sort of a track. what kind of emphasis is there right now as far as job retraining for adults? I know we have a lot of jobs that there just aren't people to fill.
I can't speak directly to that. I can only say what I've heard Lauren Massey, who's the adult ed director at CTEC, speak about, and that she's seeing higher growth in that side of it than previously from an enrollment standpoint. Many of their students who are going into, especially for the credentials, multi-craft maintenance, CNC machining, they ultimately have jobs before they even finish the program. And so our demand's outstripping our availability of people right now. The programs are there, and actually, so Grow-Licking County is currently trying to expand what we call the MIST, a Manufacturing Industrial Skills Trade Scholarship, to get more people into that. We cover scholarship through our offices, $5,000 towards certifications and adult education in CNC, welding, and multi-craft. We've had 9 of 10 students. Well, we've had all 10 students finish the program so far. 9 of 10 have been placed into those fields. 1 continues their education. So we've got a rather nice success track with that. But I think there's still an opportunity to capitalize on some of that from a retraining standpoint.
Mr. Blake?
Sir, I want to go back to when you were talking about the sites available for development. And Director Marr might want to chime into here at one point too, because I remember at some point we did some discussions, paperwork studies plan about brownfields in the city. And in particular, I remember there being about the Union Street corridor. And I think Stu Parsons might have did that at some point or another. But I just like to get, I just feel like there's many brownfields around that I just, is there any energy or anything discussions going on to try to make these pieces of property once again back into the market where we can make them available to be redeveloped?
Well, I'm going to tackle that in 2 points, if I may.
Go ahead.
First and foremost is Mark and I have not had a formal conversation about it. It's something I'm preaching to all the councils. So if there is something on file, I'm more than happy to grab it, work through it.
Well, it's several years
Yeah,
old.
digest even how relevant it still is, and then kind of work through it. Secondly, you may not know this, Councilman, but my background is in brownfields. So I did over 1,000 acres of brownfields in the Pittsburgh market, did over $80 million of private investment on those brownfields. I would love to tackle a brownfield in Licking County. It's probably where I'm most comfortable doing my job. So if there's opportunities in that realm, certainly we can have those conversations. I know I've spoken to the city of Heath about a certain brownfield there on the 79 corridor that butts the city of Newark's boundary lines. And that's an ongoing conversation. But if there's opportunities that way, certainly be more than happy to have those conversations. Ultimately, I preach this in the Pittsburgh market. Brownfields are probably the most cost-effective, strenuous, headache-focused developments because people don't know what they don't know and they get worried when they're trying to clean it up. But many times, cleanup is much more cost-effective than laying out new infrastructure and causing all this new expansion of services to areas that aren't currently served by those things. It's usually much more cost-effective long-term to just kind of keep filling in the holes of your community.
You want detail from me, Jeremy? Or?
No, but just so that Nate's aware. I remember that being from several years ago when we had quite a few people in your office, and now we've trimmed back.
Just briefly, Union Street corridor is one. Our department worked really hard getting Hope Timber set up out of Middle House property out there. That's a huge success going on right now. Just down the road from that, right at the railroad tracks at Union Street, we took down the old Forkers fishing and hunting license building. That's a piece, just like Nate talked about. You try to cobble together some pieces of ground because we are very limited. We're sort of landlocked in some respects. So we're working on that, and then the big building right there at 110 Union Street, the old Mr. B's Appliance, where we got some things going on behind the scenes there. So if we could maybe get that piece of Mulholland Street back, which was dissected by Route 79 when it connected Newark and Heath there, we're working on that. And certainly our huge brownfield success was the old Newark processing site where there's now a solar array field, which is powering Rogers, about 25% of Rogers sewage treatment plant. So yeah, we're definitely making progress there.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Mauler, is there any update that you'd like to give since this is an Economic Development Committee? Any going on the
Sorry,
Mark. Well, I gotta tell you,
notice, you know.
I gotta tell you, working with Mark and the team here at the City of Newark, Newark Development Partners has been wonderful as well. We have a very strong relationship. Myself working with Mark, working with the mayor, working with Fred and the team there. And in fact, I still get, don't let Mayor Hall hear much of this, but I mean, we had him speak at the ED 411 in early December, and I'm still getting emails from folks who are like, get me the slide deck from your mayor and what's happening in the city of Newark. We had no idea. This is pretty amazing. So,
perfect. All right. With that, we'll stand adjourned. Up next is the Service Committee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone, extra copy?
Okay, we'll call the Service Committee meeting in order. Those present are myself, Rath, Cost, Bug, Blake, and Lang. Up first, we will discuss resolution number 18-06, a resolution approving the renewal application for placement of farmland in the agricultural district and declaring an emergency. Is there anyone here other than me to speak on this? If you recall, we spoke on this recently without having legislation coming through. This is a formality that we go through on an annual basis. Mr. Sassett has asked that I speak on his behalf. With that said, does anybody have any questions? I'd like to make a motion. Motion by Bub.
Second.
Seconded by Lang. Any other questions or discussions from the committee or the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor of passing this on to council signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0. Up next will be resolution number 18-10, resolution approving the renewal application for the placement of farmland in an agricultural district and declaring an emergency. Again, Mr. Sassett asked me to speak on this, and my response would be ditto.
Make a motion.
Motion by Bub.
Second.
Seconded by Lang. Any questions from the committee? Any questions from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor of passing this on to full council signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. That will go to full council with a vote of 5-0. Up next will be resolution 18-15. Cooperating with ODOT with a project that consists of replacement and related work on Ohio Street Bridge and Manning Street Bridge over the North Fork of the Licking River, lying in the city of Newark and declaring an emergency. Mr. Moorhead.
Yes, this is our standard ODOT legislation that comes from ODOT. It's the final legislation package that comes from them, and it is to move the project forward and be able to award the bid when the bids are opened on March 22nd for the Ohio Street and Manning Street Bridge project. In addition, there is a bike path that will be built down along the south side of Ohio Street from the bridge back to 2nd Street. So that's all included in one project.
Okay.
Any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
We're declaring an emergency to meet ODOT deadlines?
Correct.
Any questions from anybody in the committee?
Motion.
Motion by Bub. Seconded by Cost. Any other questions from the committee? Any questions from the audience? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of passing this on to full council signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. That passes 5-0.
Great, thank you.
That concludes the Service Committee. Up next will be capital improvements.
All right, I'd like to call this meeting of the Capital Improvements Committee to order. Those present are myself, Mr. Fennell, Mr. Rath, Mr. Labutus, and Ms. Hall. First up, we'll consider Resolution 18-16, appropriation in the amount of $56,881.53. Mr. Morehouse.
Good evening. The appropriation you have before you is actually just it's a memo appropriation, so it's really a bookkeeping item for the 2018 year. This was a grant that we received last year, and when through some mechanism, when they balance out at the auditor's office balance out at the end of the year, the $56,881.53 of that grant amount was closed out on the purchase order. So to renew it for this year, it needs to be reappropriated. Basically, the grant is from the Ohio Public Works Commission, and it's a state capital improvements program. The overall amount of the grant was $475,000. We spent all but this $56,000 of it, and this remainder will be finished up on the paving this year with Kokosing. So I'd like to get this reappropriated so that it can go back towards the project.
Thank you, Mr. Moorhead. Not Mr. Moorhead.
That's all right.
Sorry about that. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I've been called worse.
Second. Motion by Rath.
Not by anybody up here.
Second by Lapidus. Is there any discussion from anyone on the committee? Mr. Rath?
I'm just wondering when we're going to have a 2018 list of roads.
I've got.
Is that still influenceable?
Yes, it is, and I've got one list done, but we have another list that we're working on right now. So it's the appropriate time if you have a request for us to consider.
The list that's done, is that safe to assume that that's probably 2017 leftover roads?
Everything's 2017 leftover roads. So yeah, we will, when the worst of the weather ends here in the next couple of weeks, we'll go back out and reevaluate, see if there's anything that's fallen apart even more. Street superintendent was in this morning and gave me 2 more to consider because they're falling apart. So, but as the thaw happens, I'm sure there will be a few others that we need to have a closer look at. So.
Anyone else in the committee? Any discussion from the audience? Hearing none. All those in favor of sending this on to full council signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. That passes with 5-0.
Thank you.
With that, we will stand adjourned. That concludes committee meetings for tonight. Thank you.